What's up, everyone? Good morning here on Thursday, the first day of March, and it's RJ, and I'm gonna chat with you guys today a little bit about concussion stuff. But what I wanted to first say is this is my first episode back since CSM, and what an amazing weekend, an amazing experience. Really cool to get to see and be with a lot of people from the ICE team. Um, it's we talk about the APHBT world a lot, about community and the tribe that you're a part of, and it's so cool to have met so many of the ICE team through online engagements, through stuff like the PT on ICE episodes, watching the videos that they do, the content that they put out, and some of the work group stuff that we do to get prepared to do the content we deliver for you guys. But I've only met a couple of the team members through courses that I've taken personally. So to be in a city at a PT event and be with a lot of these guys as they're in their element was an amazing experience. Getting to do an episode live with Dustin and with Mike the first morning that we had all gotten there, as well as just being part of the whole PT tribe. I think they said somewhere around 14,000 PTs, conference attendees, and with everybody else that was there, the number total at the venue was like 17,000 people. It's super cool to get on an airplane and sit down next to a physical therapist and immediately jump into conversation at a higher level, because there's this buffer, this entry, that we're all part of the same tribe and part of the same family. And as much as you might just be strangers, on an airplane, you are already able to connect at such a different level than you would have with just, a random person that you're sitting down next to. So what an amazing weekend, what an amazing experience, and what a great reason to come to Vegas next month, now that we're in March, to be part of the ICE Sampler, because again, it's going to be this confluence of all the different ICE faculty talking about all different types of conversation, but we're going to all have that same mindset of how we are trying to bump the needle forward on so many different people, so many different aspects of life that physical therapy can get its hands onto. So definitely, if you haven't booked it yet, the first weekend in April, get out here. Let's get to Vegas. Let's have this conversation. Let's meet each other. Let's start to sample all of the offerings that ICE has, and really, you're gonna leave with something, I think, more than just some PT content from that weekend. All right, so enough of my shameless plug. With that, where I want to go today is something that we had received some comments about from some of the earlier vestibular stuff, was if we were going to get into concussion conversations at all, and the answer is yes. And what I want to start with today is a discussion that is not necessarily specifically clinical, but why physical therapy is important in concussion. But I also want to open with a story from an actual case that I had here in Las Vegas, for just how challenging this whole conversation is right now, because of how concentrated and focused it is in even general discussion with the news, high school athletes, professional issues that are going on, and what the situation of the story was. And this comes around something that I talk to sometimes when I give lectures on vestibular. I will have a section on concussion. The pieces that I talk related to computerized testing being the determinant whether or not a person is safe and healthy to participate in sport, and using solely a computerized standardized test to be this metric, and where there's a lot of pitfalls or challenges with that. And so why it's so important to have someone like a physical therapist that could perform a wider, more comprehensive assessment for this person to make some of these decisions. So what had happened was this was a high school athlete. It was a female soccer player who had received several concussion injuries in her career and had a scholarship opportunity to go to a university to play D1 soccer with them. And one of the requirements was that she partake in a pre-season concussion baseline test on a computer so that she would have a baseline established for return to play decisions during the season. This was a couple of years ago, where I think we've evolved at a lot of the collegiate level now to not solely base decisions on this, but at this time, this is what basically that university was using to decide whether or not an athlete was safe to play. So she knew she had a history of head injury. She understood how this could affect how and when she could return to her sport, and she was definitely a gamer. She was somebody who wanted to be on the field, wanted to get back onto the field as soon as possible. So she made the decision she was going to attempt to do poorly on the preseason concussion test so that she would have an easier level of re-entry back onto the field during the season. What happened was she scored so poorly on the exam, the university looked at her and went, "Oh my God, your brain is mush. You're too risky for us to even have on our team. We are not allowing you to play. We are entirely suspending you for your entire academic career from the team. But in doing so, you also lose your scholarship to the school." And so now she was committed to this university, was no longer going to be able to participate in the sport, and in doing so, she was losing a lot of the financial assistance that she should have received to go to the school. And it got extremely messy, and the school kind of wasn't backing down. And how we got involved with the case is our clinic does a much wider spectrum of testing. The parents of the athlete brought her to see us to kind of get an independent review of her mental health and vestibular concussion sense, all of these things. So we performed a wide battery of tests on her and found that she had no meaningful deficits that would prevent her from playing her sport outside of the poor performance of the cognitive testing that she took, and had openly admitted that she intentionally tried to fail it. When retaking it through another group, she scored significantly higher. So there was no reason in our eyes she shouldn't be able to play, and the school decided that they would not back down on this, and she ended up not being able to play and had to make a different life decision going forward from that. And that's such a sad example, but what we have seen is we have athletes that really don't like being out of the sport that they're a part of, and they're going to try to do everything that they can to get back into it. And so if we solely use these cognitive tests alone, we're probably getting an incomplete picture, and there's the question of legitimacy to the pre and post test results. So physical therapy moves into this space, and why this is important, and especially why this is coming from the vestibular content guy, is we're looking at an extreme acceleration deceleration injury to the head with different types of trauma that are going to affect the neuronal pathways of the brain. But we also have a soft vestibular organ suspended in fluid in the inner ear, which is right up against the brain in this cavity in the skull, kind of piggybacked and adjacent right there. All of the force vectors that are occurring to cause shearing damage at the brain are also going to be impulses that the vestibular system is going to see. So it's going to go through a lot of changes as well to the issues, to the injuries that we're seeing that occur at the brain. So what we call a labyrinthine concussion, or concussions that may affect the entire inner ear labyrinth, are extremely prevalent, And this is where vestibular therapists started to really make some headway in the PT world of saying, hey, this needs to be in our field that we are owning as providers to the people sustaining concussion. And I think it's important to take a quick pause in a moment to note the conversation around concussion seems to be so heavily focused in sports because of, like I said, the NFL and the concussion movie and all of these things. But we can't also take the lens off and really look back at this picture and see that blast injuries related to military professionals, concussion is a huge challenge for them, and there's a lot that comes on as a result to sustaining a blast injury and concussion if you're in the armed forces. Also, older adults, as we talk about falls and balance issues, a fall and a hit to the head is the problem that is probably most priority to our mind's eye when we're looking at this patient. But we see in all of these types of patient populations behavioral changes, mood changes related to possible head injury, and a lot of times the conversation of having a concussion in these cases is not addressed because we're trying to fix the balance problem, or trying to maybe fix the other injuries related with a blast injury. But the psychological state and the mood behavior things that can change with concussion is going to be a whole nother conversation that we're going to have on an episode. But when we're looking at what changes we can address as PTs, so we know we have potentially upper cervical related problems. So we're going to give these patients as physical therapists one of the best upper cervical examinations that we can, because it's a primary thing that physical therapy in outpatient world treats. We should be able to assess it well and be able to make a lot of decisions of what's going on at the spine. We have exertional components. So when we're looking at autonomic dysfunction, we're seeing these patients that are experiencing kind of highly volatile episodes of heart rate mismanagement or intolerance to stress and exercise. We get them on a bike, we get them on a treadmill, we start to bring their heart rate up, their system starts sending bells and whistles going off, going haywire because they're having incorrect responses to exercise load. Those are very easy tests that we can administer within the clinic to start to see how the body's responding to that. We have things like the VOMS, or vestibular oculomotor testing. We're looking at bedside visual tracking, visual stimuli, and how the eyes are taking in a lot of information. And we know that's a key part of balance, but we also know that's a key part of functioning for a lot of these people. If they're youth sports athletes, they're sitting in class all day. They've got to read, they've got to be on computers, people that are at work. All of the things around that, we can really test and screen bedside to see some prevalence of problems there. Then we can look at vestibular from a postural sense, and we can do a lot of balance testing, and we can see, oh my God, this person, when we actually start to challenge them with some eyes closed stuff, put them on compliant surfaces that we're challenging their postural stability, they're just all over the place. They may have walked into the clinic, they look pretty good, we throw them under some vestibular load, and things go out the window there. So, as they're performing, we're going to continue to use the sport analogy, but as they're performing in their sport with this complex, motion-rich environment, if this visual impairment is on board, if this postural impairment is on board, it's going to be very hard for them to play at 100% of where they used to play. So we've got to take a look at all of these things. And then there's this massive piece that I was alluding to earlier over the behavior, the emotion, the stress, the anxiety. You're taking a person and whatever their life was, whatever they identified as in their role in their community, in their family, whether it's professional, whether it's recreational, it changes. And they're going to be experiencing changes that they may have never had to go through in their life. There's this fear now that we are creating as a society around concussion, which it's great from an awareness standpoint that we're having more conversations. But when we talk about how the words that we use can change the outcomes of where our patients' heads are at, the fact that we have this kind of ominous, oh my God, people are getting concussions and their brains are turning to mush, and they're going like schizophrenic, and they're having CTEs where they're going to go crazy and they're killing people and they're killing themselves. And now you take a 16-year-old kid that sustains a concussion playing a sport. How do they not sometimes start to jump to conclusions of like, oh my God, did I just destroy my brain for the rest of my life? And we're implanting this fear-based attitude that sustaining an injury like this could have so many soliloquies that we are creating these psychological stressors and mood disorders in people because they feel like they may never be normal again. So the conversation has to come back around to we are able to recognize these injuries. We're able to pull the athlete out. We're going to take a lot of steps to get them healthy and safe again, and their brain is going to be able to recover, and we're going to be able to get them to being a whole person again. And we know that getting a concussion at one point of your life does not equal some sort of death sentence down the road. So we've got to be very careful again with the words that we use. That's a big thing that I look at a lot with kind of any patient that I've worked with now, since I've gotten more and more involved with the whole ice world and other things that I follow online. I think it's very important that we kind of control the message, and we let people know that it's okay to go through the things that we're coming alongside to help them with, and that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and not use those nocebo words, if you would, that are telling people, oh, well, your disc exploded in your back, and that's why your leg's numb, and now this patient's leaving there imagining a disc blowing up in their lumbar spine, and how could they ever feel like their back will be normal again? So a lot more to cover in these concussion conversations, but I wanted to start with something like this because it was a very real and specific incident to our clinic, and why I kind of get frustrated in places when I hear that it's only the cognitive computer-based testing that they're used to make the decision. PT needs to be a part of it. We need to be able to look at the whole human. We got to treat the whole human. That's the message here. And then let's not make concussion just a conversation about sports and athletes, because our older adults, our weekend warriors, our soldiers with blast injuries, the list goes on and on of anybody that can sustain some traumatic injury to the brain. And we want to be inclusive with the people that we're trying to get to, and not just focus in on one subset. The conversation just easily goes that way because that's where I think the most noise is at the moment. So thank you guys for tuning in. Excited to be back home. Excited to be on an episode again following CSM. Really, really want to see you in April out here in Las Vegas. We're going to have an epic weekend. And as always, the platter of courses to take outside of this ice sampler just continues to grow. So keep your eyes peeled to the website, and let's get you at one. Would love to connect. Looking forward to having you guys, and we'll talk soon. Have a good one.